6 things every psychic needs to learn, coming up right after this. Good afternoon, I am Lucky Lynx, and I'm going to dive right in. I've made my notes. Here's a video on 6 things that I believe, in my experience of doing and being a professional psychic for 2 decades. This is my recommendations for everyone who's starting out, everyone who wants to get better, everyone who wants to improve their psychic ability, everyone who wants to have that wow factor that makes people go, how the hell did you do that? These are 6 secrets that I have learned and come up with and I'm sharing with you right now. Number 1, look for the patterns in people. So being a psychic is just as much being able to observe a situation and observation as it is anything. People like to talk about the mystical, the ability to tap into and hear spirits, and I'm not saying that that isn't a part of it. It is. It's actually another point on my list here. But the ability to actually watch the patterns of people and watch the patterns of the energy at work. He or she who is really good at watching the patterns becomes really profound in their ability to predict. Anyone who knows the art of prediction is about being able to watch the patterns and see where they're going to go. Okay, so it's just as important to be able to watch human behavior and the patterns of human behavior and the real patterns of human behavior. And I'm not talking about stuff that's put out there by pop psychologists or therapists, or I'm talking about you actually watching the patterns of human beings and how they work and seeing what patterns lead to what. Especially if you have clients that you work with all the time, it becomes very much a skill to be able to spot what patterns, the cycles that a client goes through, or the cycles that a person goes through. You usually, if you watch those cycles, you can usually tell, oh, they're going to be going into this cycle next, because people work in patterns, they work in cycles. People are really big on thinking that they're very unique and they're unpredictable, but they're not. People work in patterns. There are patterns to their behavior, which, by the way, comes from the whole idea of karma, which actually means habit. So if you're able to watch people's patterns, if you're able to watch the patterns of humans, you will be a much better psychic, and it is a practical skill that will come in handy for everything. Because if you can watch the patterns of other people, eventually you start to be able to watch your own patterns, and you go, wait a minute, why do I do this? When I do this, I do this. Wait a minute, that's not right. And then you have the ability, once you can spot the patterns, you will have the ability to break those patterns. All right? Number 2, get out of your own way. Now, this may sound like it's very simple, but it's one of the main reasons why people who do psychic readings for other people, they can't read for themselves. One of the things that gets in the way of people's ability to read is their emotional state. When a person is wrapped up in emotion, when they're wrapped up in feeling, it dulls their ability to actually perceive what's going on. Because if you're wrapped up in your emotions, you can't go back to number 1, which was spotting the patterns in people. You can't watch the patterns in people if you're wrapped up in your own emotion, or you're wrapped up in the emotional state of the situation. That's first. And also, if you're wrapped up in your own emotion, you can't access any spirit communication that's coming in or anything that's happening in the spirit world, because you're so wrapped up in your own human garbage. Humans cannot tap into the supernatural world. We need to become something else if we really want to be able to do that. Now, I want to emphasize that this stuff is a skill. This is an art. And all of these things on this list take practice. And this one is one of the ones that takes the most practice, being able to get out of your own way. And it's really subtle how it happens, and I'll explain why. You may have an agenda as a psychic, and I've seen this a million times with people who come to me for readings and who come as students wanting to learn how to read. They'll say, "Oh well, I want to be this conduit for healing," and then And that's at war with something inside of them that's telling them, I want to be a good person. In both of those cases, there's agendas going on. Well, I want to be the healer, and I want to be a good person. And what happens is they'll get in a situation where they have to tell something to someone that actually may not be pleasant, or may hurt, or it may make them crash, so that they can move out of it and get to something else, okay? But they don't want to, because they want to be the good person. And helping someone find what information they need to be able to heal themselves doesn't always come with the, hey, I want to be liked by everyone. Because usually this whole I want to be a good person thing, usually what that really equates to is I want everyone to like me. And when you're helping someone to find the information that they really need, whatever it is they really need, it doesn't always come in the package of, well, they're going to like me. Sometimes you're the one that says the thing that no one else will say, and they'll be like, everyone's like, oh no, he loves you, he's great, he's that, and you're like, he treats you like garbage. Why don't you appreciate yourself? And then you're the bad guy, but yet you're the one who told them the one thing that makes them go, you know what, you're right. Why do I treat myself that way? So, get yourself out of the way. The best advice I ever heard about how to make a reading go well is if you don't care at all what the hell the outcome is, you don't really care what the outcome is, you're more likely to be accurate. But so many people go into a reading thinking, well, I want them to like me, I want them to be repeat business, I want to make their lives full of love, and all this garbage gets in the way, and you can't get to what the information is that's coming. First of all, the patterns, can't see the patterns because you're too busy worrying about everyone thinking that you're light in love. And the second thing is you can't hear what the spirits are actually saying. And the third thing is you may have to say something that actually is not the easiest thing for them to hear, but it may be the thing, if you really know how to communicate, may be the thing that really helps them to unleash or release something that's holding them back. Okay, number 3, recognize that there is a spirit world and that it influences you greatly. There's this habit these days came out with this whole idea of manifesting. And people will say to me, and those of you who watched my station for a long time, you know that I've had a lot of videos on spirit contracts and what happens when people get involved in a contract with a spirit. They make a wish, something comes along and says, hey, I'll help you, and there's a contract that's made, right? Well, a lot of people would write me and say, well, what if I'm manifesting it myself and I'm not using any spirit contracts? You have to be real careful with this because that's bordering on what actually is the next point on this list. That's that whole idea that, well, there is no spirit world, and this is something else entirely separate from the spirit world. And I saw this in a lot of the oracles that come out that sort of they try to scrub the spirit world out of it. You do live in a world that is heavily influenced by the spirit. The spirit's in the space around you. Impressions that have been left in a space affect you. Spirits of the land around you. There are all sorts of spirits that are influencing you. Deities, stuff is influencing you nonstop or coming into your life nonstop, crossing your path constantly. And those of you who will not admit that there is a spirit world, you're not psychic. Because if you're ignoring what's coming in, you're not tapping into that which is truly spiritual. We in Tibetan Bond believe that we are spirit first and then the body is second. But there is this current habitual thing that's developed among all of these current teachings that put the body first. It's all about getting the new car. It's all about the impressions and how you view to people, how you look, what scent you're wearing, what oil you've got on. If it's not about the spirit world, then you're missing half the point of the whole psychic thing. You are interacting with the spirit world, and you are interacting with humans as well. And if you deny the fact that there's a spirit world, it's going to create problems with you. Not only is it going to create problems for you, but your readings will not be accurate. Also, there are those who believe that if they use the tarot cards, it's the card itself and they're not actually interacting with spirits. It's not true, and I've said that a million times on this station. If you're using a tarot deck, if you're using an oracle, you are interacting with spirits. The card deck is acting as a conduit, and those who really learn how to read these things well, they learn how to interact with, hear, sense, feel, see what the spirit is telling you through the cards. Okay, number 4. You are not the source. This kind of goes along with the last one. So that whole idea of manifesting things, people always say, well, I'm manifesting it myself. BS. That's like saying you got your way to the top of a company and no one else helped you. You did it all yourself. Whatever we do in our lives, other people and other beings are helping us. You are not the source of the magic. You are not the source until you become an enlightened being. And you've gone that whole way and become a enlightened being. And if you want to know what it takes to be enlightened in the Tibetan Von sense, I can send you a link and you can watch a video from His Holiness Padma Gampo Rinpoche on what someone in the old sense had to do to become enlightened. But unless you are an enlightened being, you're asking for help. There are gods, there are spirits, there are demons, there are ghosts, there are all sorts of beings all day long that are assisting in your requests. So when you put that thought out there that my thought forms are going to draw it back to me, there are other beings involved always. So if you're getting a flash of something, your intuition of something, there are other beings that are influencing you, that are interacting with you constantly. Spirits of the space, spirits of place, of the earth, of the sky. There's spirits all around you that are influencing you. And if you're hearing something, if you're sensing something, and you're feeling something, chances are someone is influencing you, and it's really arrogant of people to think that they're the source of all of this, that it's all coming from me. That's a God complex, and I'm going to warn you, unless you develop some humility in this particular let's call it tool, let's call it a ability, you will be completely misled. And not only will you mislead yourself, but you'll mislead the people that you're trying to help or you're wanting to help. So you are not the source. There's all sorts of stuff out there that is influencing us, and it's really not very appreciative, and it's not very respectful to dismiss what they're doing and to push them aside and say, it's all me. That's the kind of behavior that actually usually comes with someone saying, hey, I helped you. You're really disrespectful. You're really ungrateful, and I'm going to give you something to teach you a lesson. All right, number 5, you can be wrong. There's all sorts of ways that things can go wrong. You could be watching the patterns of a situation. The patterns can be going this. All of a sudden, someone changes their mind. Things go in a different direction. There's infinite potentials in every moment. And when we do psychic readings, when we look into a situation, when we gaze into a situation to see what's going on, we see the patterns going at the moment. And when we interact with the beings out there, the spirits out there, they'll tell us their impressions of what's going on in the situation, what they're seeing the outcome is. If you're really good, you have a really good connection with them. Most of the time, you'll be able to see what's going on, because usually humans are pretty predictable, and they go in a series of steps that they are comfortable doing. So it's pretty easy to predict they're going to go in that direction, because that's where they're headed right now. But there can be, especially if you're doing a reading for someone, you can't say, hey, this, and this is coming your way, and it can look like it's going to go terribly wrong, and you can inform them of it, and they can make a decision and change their mind and go in a different direction. Or they could be headed towards something they claim to want, and you can predict it. They can change their mind, they can get cold feet, they can freak out, they can go in the other direction, and then boom, situation changes again. Sometimes something happens, and I've said this before, take a look at what the Mandela effect is, and take a look at what is happening with CERN. Timelines can shift, things can change, and if you are not out of the way, which was one of the previous ones on the list, you can very much let your emotions or an agenda influence what you're saying, and then boom, the situation is wrong. Just like any other art form, or just like any other situation where people are communicating with each other or predicting things or looking at what a possibility is, an individual can be wrong. You are not infallible. So those of you out there who get on your own back and beat yourself up because your readings are not infallible, hey, that's the nature of the game. Things do shift, things do change, and what you do in that situation is you look at the situation again. You go, okay, it shifted, it changed. Let's see what happened. Let's see why it happened. So remember, you are not the be-all, end-all. You are not infallible. This is something that is fluid and flexible, and you have to be fluid and flexible in order to be a really good psychic. You've got to be fluid and flexible yourself. And allow yourself the freedom to be wrong, and then to learn from it. And then if you're working with someone, say, hey, I was wrong. Okay, let's look at what happened. And that's all you have to do. You don't have to beat yourself up. You don't have to defend yourself. Let's see what happened. And remember, though, that you can be wrong, you can be right many, many times, but still, sometimes something can shift, and that's okay. Number 6, and this is probably the most important one on the list. Just because you can read the cards, just because you can get a flash of something, just because you can get a premonition, just because you can predict, just because you can tune in the spirit world, that does not mean you are enlightened, and it does not give you free reign over telling everyone, everywhere, how they're supposed to live their life. It's a skill, it's a ability, and it is a very, very small thing in the larger picture of spiritual accomplishment. It is a handy thing to be able to do. It is a wonderful thing to be able to do. It really is a great art to be able to master and express and use to help other people. However, just because you can read the cards, it doesn't mean you're infallible, and it doesn't mean that you are completely enlightened, and it doesn't mean that you are the be-all, end-all answer to everything. I am Lucky Lynx, as always, wishing you success and good fortune in all that you do. I hope these 6 things bring you some insight and give you some hope and give you some maybe benchmarks to use in your development, your psychic development. Maybe let you off the hook about some things. If you would like to get a reading from me, 779-302-8009 or conjurehope@gmail.com. Hey, if you would like to learn how to read the tarot cards, I've got a basic class and I've got an advanced class. I've got a Mexican Loteria class, how to read the Mexican Loteria, how to read playing cards, how to read a crystal ball, 2 in Lenormand, a basic and a grand tableau. And if you'd like to learn how to read any of those, I've got a class for you, a virtual class, happen in a private Facebook group. Message me and I'll tell you how to get into those classes. If you would like to do your Tibetan Khil Khor, where I make a map of your life and then employ Tibetan processes to bring things into being, to remove obstacles, to make changes. It's a really profound, really amazing experience. If you'd like to get that done, contact me, 779-302-8009 or conjurehope@gmail.com. And also, if you'd like to get your Tibetan Astrology Chart done, I have clients right now. I'm a little backed up. I'm working through my clients right now. I'm a little backed up, but I'm still taking... do it now, because as the year goes on, it's going to get really backed up here. And I will be doing my people's cosmology after that. And once they realize what can happen with the astrology, and I show them what can happen with the cosmology, it's going to be through the roof. So if you want to set up now, 779-302-8009, conjurehope@gmail.com. For those of you who've donated, thank you. You guys are amazing. I've got some really amazing, incredible donations from people, and I'm very grateful. If these videos are helping you and you want to donate to help keep them coming, well, I'm going to put my PayPal, my Venmo in the spot below. Hey, enjoy yourself. Develop your psychic gifts, your intuition. It truly is a marvelous, wonderful art to explore, and I highly recommend it. But remember, there's more to it than meets the eye, and it takes practice, it takes dedication, and it takes a sense of play, a sense of wonder, and a sense of joy.